You're tuned in to Repco Muscle Garage, the home of New Zealand's toughest muscle cars, hot rods and street machines. Proudly brought to you by Repco, in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Rislone. This week, Magoo Street Rods chalks up a quarter of a century, and we raid Lee's collection of Fords and bikes in the Bay. But first, thanks to our mates at Maguire's, we're in Wainuiomata, catching up with Mr. Hayden Wilby, the man behind Fitzroy Motorsport and pilot of Nutout, one angry VT Commodore charged with terrorising burnout pads across Australasia.
Growing up in the area that we live in, it's very car orientated. I used to work at a gas station after school and stuff like that. You know, there'd always be these cool V8s coming in to get gas. And then there was the likes of Port Road Drags, which, you know, he's been running for years and years. So you'd always go as a kid because it was only around the corner, and just the sound of a V8, you just can't beat the sound of a V8. I don't know, I feel like growing up around here and you just progressed into cars.
And not just cars of any old origin.
All this Ford versus Holden doesn't do nothing for me. Yeah, Aussie V8s. 76 XP Falcon, kind of a street cruiser type thing. Take the kids out in the weekend. We've got 73 XA Coupe, brought off Liz and Ryan Gracie. Awesome car, always wanted a coupe. Had one when I was younger, swapped it when I was about 18 or 19 for a Triple S Bluebird. Felt like a good option at the time, maybe not so much now. So when we got the opportunity to buy one back, we definitely got stuck into it. We want to make it a bit more of a street car next year, so that's another work in progress. And then we've got the VT, which we bought back in 2017 to compete in the NZBC. I originally had a HQ, which was blown as well, but did a few skid comps in that and just realised how much damage that you actually do to the vehicles, and it just wasn't worth it on such a cool car. And at that time, the VTs were a dime a dozen and fairly cheap power. And so and then it's just evolved from then ever since.
When the VT first hit the pad in 2017, it wasn't too much more serious than a cammed Commodore, and would cop incremental upgrades as rounds went on. But it was after a successful second season of the New Zealand Burnout Championship, one that netted an invite to Burnout Masters, and with a trip to Aussie's iconic Summer Nats now on the cards, Hayden and his crew made the call to ramp things up. You see, Hayden had made the trip the year before to support his mate Rob in the Agro XY Falcon, so he knew the stakes. Nothing short of an angry blown power plant would fit the dress code. The VT's evolution hasn't stopped since.
So we destroyed our first LS1. We learned a lot from that though, and so we evolved by the time we were ready to build the second motor. This one is a L98, so 6 litre block, and we're running a forged bottom end. We've improved our fuel system, stuff like that. The L98s run the really good heads, so we've kept them. And then we've just got all the good ARP bits and pieces holding it together, steel head gaskets. We're running a BDS manifold. We've got a BDS blower, 871 blower. It's got an intercooler as well.
The 6-litre Llama Engineering-built L98 gets served a healthy portion of E85 from a custom EFI setup fed by triple Aeroflow fuel pumps. A Holden T56 shifts cogs, while the factory IRS is beefed up with a full spool and Showtime Customs and Fabrications 1,000 horsepower rated axles. The big gear's not there for show.
You know, when you're doing burnouts, you are going to test every aspect of that vehicle, every bit of the drivetrain, everything. You try and get your tyres off in about a minute. Well, that's 1 minute of absolute punishment on every single part of that vehicle. The cooling system, the drivetrain, you know, the axles, the gearbox, absolutely everything. You know, these high-level drag cars, you know, they'll go down and do 10 passes. That might be a whole season. You know, so what they do in a whole season, we do in one skid. I guess it's like sort of any sport when you're amongst the, you know, all those people that are there for the same thing, and then you line up for that burnout. You're waiting. It's, you know, you're watching each car go out, and people are, you know, having issues, or go out there and they do a killer skid or something like that, and then it's your turn. You know, and then the flag drops, and you just hit the accelerator, you know, you hook the brake or whatever, and you're a zone, you know, and you're buzzing. The adrenaline is pumping through your heart, and you fly down that entrance as fast as you can to get the big tip in, and you know, for the next minute or so, you're just on the, you don't know, you can't hear anything else outside the car. You know, you're just like, you're in there, you know, it's just a buzz. And then you come off, you pop your tyres, whatever. That's an adrenaline rush that you just can't pay for. You know, it's hard to describe unless you've done it. You know, it's not like going around the streets and from the clutch or going sideways around a corner doing stupid stuff. You know, this is going out there and you can't describe that feeling. You know, it's awesome. You know, there's a whole bad light to, you know, modified car scene and all that kind of stuff, and we're just trying to show it in a good light. You know, good, safe, legal events.
And if he can't make every event, you can follow along at home. Hayden's Fitzroy Motorsport has earned itself quite the following on social media, posting vlogs of the various projects on the go, as well as event action. And you can find all that by typing Fitzroy Motorsport into the usual places. Be it the burnout pad, drift track, or even the drive your mates type events. If there's tyres to shred, then chances are this bloke will be right amongst it.
I can't tell you if I'll ever grow out of it. You know, when I'm old and grey, I think I'll still have cool cars. Well, as long as the government lets us. I might have an electric cool car. We'll see what happens.
Right, shed raid time now. Thanks to our mates at Mount Shop, this week we're in the Bay, checking out the collection and rather cool shed of Mr. Lee Adams.
Well, my granddad, he was always into his old Fords. Early 90s, he had a tweaked up flathead powered 46 coupe, business coupe. I used to play in that in his garage. First car was a Mark II Escort Sport, and kind of started from there. Yep, I love my Fords, so I guess that's what my granddad had, and I've just kind of kept going with that.
And if you're of the old car persuasion, then surely the best place to keep these things is in a suitably old shed.
It was all a fluke, really. I've been here for 9 years, and I drove past the area, happened to see a for sale sign on the house, and it said includes large shed. So I rang the guy up, and it was actually in my budget. It went from there, really. The house needs a lot of work, which most of it's done, but so I kind of bought a garage, and it came with the house. Came with all the original dust and that. I think it's been around since the 30s. To have something old to put all your old stuff in just makes it that much better. Yeah, so it's called the Strokers Garage, and that came from the Strokers bicycle gang. Well, we had a few flatmates here and all hang out in rally 20s and go for rides through town, and it does raise a few eyebrows though.
And a Strokers four-wheeled weapon of choice?
51 Ford Victoria, what Kiwis and Australians know as a twin spinner. I've had it for about 10 years. It's got a 289 and a C4 in it. It goes quite well. It actually got dropped off in Japan by accident on its way over and lost for a couple of months. It's good fun. It's good fun. Really like the grille. The front end on them kind of say custom straight away, even though they're factory, and early 50s was what I wanted really. Yeah, it's a 59 Ford ranch wagon. I've had that for 5 years. We actually got it in Texas and trucked it to LA and drove around there for 3 weeks. Did 3,000 miles over there in it and then put it in a container and bring it back to New Zealand. So it's all original, 2-door, Y-block powered. Rebuilt that a couple of years ago and it goes really well. A bit impractical being a 2-door and being so long, but kind of makes it cooler.
Lee's immersed himself in a hobby whose participants are, quite frankly, greying rapidly. It's also a financially prohibitive one for a generation already facing sky-high living costs. But this younger crowd might just have a big advantage. What may have been a mere commuter vehicle in its day gets a whole lot cooler decades on, and that can only help the hobby's transition into a new wave of hot rodders.
Certainly a lot of the lesser popular cars, they're coming into trend. More and more of them will find that they see a car, it takes them by surprise, they love it, and it really gives them a spark to try and find something more or something older, opens their eyes a bit to what they can have. You learn so much from just tinkering with them or just playing in the garage really. I like to think it's with me for life. There's always new stuff popping up and that you always find different tangents to go on with old cars or just the old things in general, so I like to think it's with you for life. Makes it that much sweeter.
advanced protection of hybrid ceramic.
Whoa.
Now in 3 easy-to-use products. In original spray wax, now as a liquid wax, and a spray detailer. Meguiar's hybrid ceramic family with advanced SiO2 technology. Meguiar's, ceramic made easy.
Rizlone has been in engines almost as long as engines have been in cars. Why? Because from then until now, there's never been a perfectly clean fuel. This means every time you fill up, you're adding pollutants and contaminants to your fuel system. Rizlone Fuel Injector Cleaner can cure those woes and help save your engine. Rizlone Fuel Injector Cleaner adds an upper cylinder lubricant, providing double the cleaning power out of the same bottle. We know something about aging well, so when we say it's your engine's fountain of youth under a screw top, you can count on it. Rizlone is the original engine tune-up. Available at participating stores near you.
You're back with Repco Muscle Garage. And thanks to Rizlone, we're helping celebrate a bit of a milestone this week. If you've spent any time immersed in New Zealand's hot rod and custom culture, then the name Magoo will need a little introduction. Lloyd Magoo Wilson is a man who's dedicated much of his life to the pursuit of hot rodding, both personally and through his business, Magoo Street Rods in Masterton. This year, that business clocks up 25 years.
Yeah, for me, I almost accidentally fell into hot rodding. My dad wasn't a car guy or mechanical at all, but I grew up in Levin where there's motor racing and used to follow that quite avidly and got to meet a lot of those racing heroes of the 1960s. My hero at the time was Red Dawson. He had a Mustang, number 35, and I had a slot car, which was a replica of his vehicle. And one night I was going to the slot car club, walking the way there, and I called into a dairy on the way to get some chocolate or something, I can't remember, and in there was a hot rod magazine that had his car on the cover. So I bought it simply because of his car on the cover, not knowing what a hot rod is. Loved the whole concept of what I saw, and then a couple of days later, literally, one of the hot rods that had been featured in that magazine turned up in my town that Friday night cruising, and I was hooked from that point on. I really needed to own one of these vehicles. I was only 15 years old and there wasn't a hot rod club in our town. So I went round to everybody that I knew or had seen that had a modified vehicle, and one of the guys was my cousin-in-law. So he became a great source of inspiration and guidance for me to really develop an understanding about what hot rodding was. Together we co-founded the Hot Rod Club there and Terra Rodders in Levin, and really that's the start of my journey, and here I am still doing it. Almost 50 years later. I guess when I first started, the appeal of hot rod was nothing to actually do with its performance or actually driving it. I hadn't had my driver's license very long at all when I bought my first 1937 Ford Coupe, and that was just a project. So it was a couple of years before I was in a position to actually drive a hot rod. So in the first instance, it was really the colour, just what these cars looked like. They were so spectacular driving down the road. That was the thing that captured me, and the fact that they were all different. There weren't two cars exactly the same. They were obviously statements in terms of people doing things differently, perhaps a little bit rebellious, but it was the uniqueness of the vehicles and the colour and the glitter and the chrome. That's what initially caught me and appealed to me.
Hot rodding had become a way of life for Magoo, building and maintaining his own vehicles. But after frustrations with importing parts and more so sourcing reliable and readily available panel beaters, Lloyd figured if you can't beat him, join him. Magoo Street Rods was born. A body man was added to the ranks first, followed by an engineer. And 25 years later, it's a full house with a team of 7.
The background to the name Magoo, and of course in hot rodding, most hot rodders have a nickname. But for me, early in the piece, I used to wear a bowler hat and I wore glasses. And I was in Auckland, actually up at Neil Roper's place, and he took me around to see Pete Clark, who at the time was the president of the Hot Rod Association. And Pete's son walked into the lounge and looked at me and how I was dressed and said, "Oh, Dad, there's Mr. Magoo." And the nickname stuck from there. Yeah, more people around the world know me as Magoo than know me as Lloyd. And as it turned out with the business, it was just an ideal name to put to it.
Magoo figured he'd be doing something right if the business could be successful enough to accommodate some work on his own projects. Between the bustling workshop and busy parts supply, well, he might have got a little more than he bargained for.
The irony of that whole process is it took me 25 years to finish my wife's car because customers' cars took precedent as the business got busier and busier. She would argue that it didn't work as far as my own vehicles were concerned because they got finished a lot faster than hers did.
Fast is a relative term, however. This 32 Roadster is Magoo's own, and it's been a slow burner. But the finish line is finally in sight. The Ford runs a 392 Hemi topped with Hillborn mechanical injection converted to electronic. While much effort has gone into cleaning up the Roadster's mechanicals, there are no pulleys in sight. Good luck spotting the alternator, and the 32 now stops thanks to electric brakes. The tricks, techniques, and level of detail and finish may have evolved in the workshop's 25 years, but the iconic shapes of hot rodding, not so much.
25 years ago when we started, there were only a few people totally committed to building hot rods in New Zealand on a professional basis. The interesting thing, I guess, for me is over that last period of time, the growth in the hobby has meant that there's been a whole sort of sub-industry develop with guys working in the garage building cars, but also the range of parts, the availability of parts that just didn't exist when I started in the hobby, particularly in the reproduction car parts area. In one sense, it is easier now to build a hot rod than it was 25 years ago. The growth of the sport continues to amaze me in terms of the interest, the new blood still coming into the sport. It's obviously a lot more expensive than it was back when I started, and whilst that might have a negative effect on younger ones being able to get involved, there's certainly a lot of baby boomers and retired people that are saying, hey look, I've seen what's happening at the beach shop, I want a piece of that action, and the sport is still growing, which is fantastic. I guess if I reflect back over what we've achieved in the time that we've been in business, we've built well over 50 turnkey cars, and whilst that's very, very significant, the reality is that there's probably another 100 cars out there that we've worked on and contributed to, but haven't actually taken the project the whole way, because a lot of the cars that we do might be like a roller vehicle that the customer gets us to do part of the work, and then they'll finish it off themselves or take it to the next stage and then bring it back to us to finish. And then beyond that, there's another sort of ripple of the circle, as it were, in terms of literally thousands of cars around the country that we've had the privilege of being able to supply parts for. So one of the kicks I still get is when I go to an event and I see people that have been customers of ours, been buying a little part or building a car, and saying, yeah, we had a part in that car being such a cool car, and a part of those people being able to enjoy that car at that event. That's all part of why we've been here. So I guess a legacy for us would be the fact that we've contributed to so many hot rods around the country, therefore helping to make the sport what it is today.
The Magoo's legacy is in good hands. Lloyd's son Nathan has long been a part of the crew here and more recently stepped up to a shareholder in the business. In fact, this whole game is a family thing, from wife Anne and her freshly completed 34 right down to drag racing grandkids. While 25 years in the trade is nothing to be sneezed at, for Magoo, hot rodding's roots run far deeper than a day job.
I still love the whole concept of a hot rod as much as I did when I started. I guess I've been really lucky through the years in terms of being able to travel to the States numerous times, see the sport there, get ideas from there. But both with that and with the New Zealand scene, ultimately it's the friends that we've made. We've had fantastic times as a family, going to events, participating in events, made some tremendous friendships. So you develop this network that, whilst hot rodding is the common bond, to a large extent you could take the cars away and you'd still be friends with those people. And ultimately it's those relationships that make the hobby worthwhile. I'm often asked, is this a dream job, working in a place where you're surrounded by cars all day? And the reality is pretty much yes. I mean, every job has good days and bad days, and you have your days when there's a lot of stress, and certainly in the early days of the business where, how are we going to pay the bills, how are we going to pay the staff, there are hard yards. Anybody that's been in business knows that it's not a cakewalk on the way through. But yes, it is a dream job. I love the cars, I love the people, I've got a fantastic team of staff, and there's nothing that I'd rather be doing as a job.
Your ride needs some love? We've got you sorted. Thanks to our mates at Maguire's, we have this massive complete car care pack worth over $760 to give away. Plus, a $500 Mount Shop voucher to keep the underside ship-shape too. And to top it off, 1 year subscription to NZ V8 magazine. To enter, simply head to themotorhood.com and hit the Repco Muscle Garage link. The winner will be drawn at the end of the series. Easy. During this year's Repco Supercars Championship season, the garage is your go-to place for all things supercars and motoring. Exclusive content, special guests, and your chance to win amazing experiences at the track. Register your interest today. Repco Muscle Garage was proudly brought to you by Repco. It starts with the parts. Mount Shop, undercar specialists. Maguire's, people who love cars love Maguire's. And Rizlo, high-performance additives for high-performance vehicles.